Hello, dear ones. Welcome to the Indigo Rose Lounge, a visual of which should be on your screens. And this is what I imagine this space looks like. Energetically, it's just a space of yay and yummy and welcome and have a throw and a hot chocolate and a tea or a coffee and a biscuit. Just be comfy and warm and cozy. Lovely to have you here. As always, I'll be meandering through some sixth-sensed, indigo, child, adult type ideas. And we're going to get clearer about this terminology at some point. And just think that I'd like us to all do it together somehow. Indigo works fine because it was the clearest, perhaps the most truthful of the findings. So, yeah, the Indigo Child books, late 60s, early 70s, really set the foundation for these kids that were being born with extrasensory perception. And then a lot of us were born and most of us died, either through our own choice or just popped off this mortal coil, because it's not an easy road. The statistics are 19 out of 20 of us make it to 25. So if you are here in this human experience listening to my voice, then you are 1 in a million. Well done. Seriously, congratulations. You really are exceptional. But maybe you have found ways to harness your sixth sense and focus it and make it a good. And really, I think that's the turning point we're at. We're at the idea of let's stop allowing other people to label us and diagnose us and try to pretend that there's something wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with us. We simply have abilities and perceptions beyond the traditional human experience, and the whole of humanity is catching up as much as they try and stop it, and they do. The they, who's the they? Well, those who do not want humanity that they can't control. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, dear heart. If I lay it all out for you, I don't believe there's anybody who wouldn't come to the same conclusion. Anyway, so there is Robert Frost, there is something that doesn't like a wall. Well, there is something that doesn't like the evolution of humanity and is trying to stop it. But the fact that I'm sitting here today means that they didn't get it right. So, where to from here? Well, one of the things that has always interested me is intellect, knowing and intellect, knowledge and intellect and knowing. And those are different elements. So intellectually knowing something means you've read it in a book and you've been through all of the studies, or you've been through all of the case studies, if you like, about this truth. So it's an intellectual statement of fact, in inverted commas, that someone has arrived at following a reasoning pathway. And a knowing is a particularly sixth sense thing. And knowing is we just know. And as indigo children, we often live life backwards. So we come into this world and we immediately experience knowing. We know this is right. We know that's wrong. We know those people are lying. We know this is for us. This isn't for us. And we have to then wait for the intellectual component to fill in. So for most of my life, I feel like I've lived life backwards. I've known certain things were wrong and bad and not for me since I was a child, but have some of them only recently figured out why. To me, the intellectual component is almost unnecessary. If I know something is not for me or is not a contribution to my wellness or wholeness, I will simply avoid it, because I've had enough examples and enough validations of why that's true So as a child, I knew, for example, I was one of the only children in my set, my family grouping, who would not eat hamburgers. I would not drink fizzy drinks. I've never drank fizzy drinks in my life. That's not true. Fanta grape. We had a good drink as a child called Fanta grape. And that for me felt like the least toxic of them. I would still, however, shake it and make the bubbles go out first. So carbonated drinks, no. Sugary things, no. Hamburgers and fast food, no. It just, I knew as a child I didn't want these things. Tinned things, no, I won't eat it. Can you imagine? I was probably a very difficult child. But I had a knowing. I knew this, yuck, no, no. There are actors, actresses, people that I would not spend time engaging with, even if it meant watching them. Just no. The story might have been wonderful, but the feeling I got from them was just icky and no, no. And so Nutty has I think he experiments with me because he says he'll throw a name at me and say, "What about this person?" So, remember, no, yeah, no, they're into all sorts of weird stuff. So there's a knowing, and some of that, the reasons for that knowing, are only emerging now. So I was fortunate to be born with a, a, dis, a detachment from the opinions of others. I didn't care much what other people thought. They were welcome to their thought. In the same place, I was not judgmental. I don't have judgment in me as a default. I don't judge what other people do. They can make their own choices. But for me, it's a no. Yeah? So the knowing came first. And my experience is that a lot of sixth sense people, when they start to develop their sixth sense, when they start to become confident, they start to work with their fairies, they start to work with their confidence levels on their sixth sense, these things will emerge for them. I knew, they'll say. I knew. When I was growing up, I knew that was just not right. I knew that person was just icky. I knew. See? There's a lot of hidden knowledge. There's a lot of things you knew. And you just have to make space for that knowing to return. You were right. You're always right. Other people might have convinced you to ignore your knowing, but you always knew, didn't you? Hmm? Think back. What are some of the things you knew and ignored? And then later you found out, no, I was right. You see? You have it. It's all in there. Yeah? So I work knowing backwards. I know it, and then later I figure out why it is. And I don't know that the intellectual knowing is always that important to me anymore. If I know it, I know it. I'll figure out why one day, maybe, or maybe not. Maybe I'll just know it, and that will be enough. And then I'll avoid something. I won't even know what I'm avoiding. Maybe one day I will. Maybe one day I'll stumble across a piece of information that puts it all in perspective. Or not. But because I have this confidence in my knowing, because I know that my knowing knows, I walk forward in confidence. I walk forward in peace and ease. And I know that I'll know what's good and what's not when I encounter it. Yeah? And I know that what feels best is always love good. So, love always.